Vin Mariani. In the 1860s, the most fashionable drink in Europe was a red wine laced with cocaine, and the Pope loved it so much he put it on a medal. Vin Mariani was Bordeaux steeped with coca leaves, about 6 milligrams of cocaine per ounce, more in the export version aimed at America. The alcohol pulled the drug straight out of the leaf, so every glass delivered a real chemical lift. The endorsements read like a wax museum. Queen Victoria, Thomas Edison, Jules Verne, Ulysses Grant. Pope Leo XIII handed its maker a Vatican gold medal and posed for the adverts. Then, a pharmacist in Atlanta named John Pemberton copied the recipe, and when his city went dry, he stripped out the alcohol and sold the coca syrup as a soft drink instead. He called it Coca-Cola. The cocaine wine itself faded around 1914, finished off by its founder's death and America's first serious narcotics loss. Four Loko. In 2010, 9 college students in Washington state ended up in hospital after a single party, one of them with a blood alcohol level of 0.35, so high that investigators first assumed the punch had been spiked. It hadn't. They'd just been drinking Four Loko. One 23-ounce can held 12% alcohol, around 5.5 standard drinks, plus roughly 156 milligrams of caffeine, about 2 energy drinks worth. The stimulant hid how drunk you were getting, so you kept going. The press christened it blackout in a can. That November, the FDA declared the added caffeine an unsafe food additive, which didn't technically ban Four Loko, but made the original recipe impossible to sell. Within weeks, it was reformulated into a quieter, caffeine-free version. Same alcohol, none of the chaos. Bat wine. In parts of Southeast Asia and the Pacific, a bat, sometimes whole, wings and all, is dropped into a jar of rice liquor, left to steep, and drunk as a folk cure for asthma and coughs. It cures neither. What it actually does is take one of the most dangerous animals on Earth to consume and turn it into a beverage. Bats are the single richest natural reservoir of coronaviruses known to science. The SARS family and the closest known relatives of the virus behind COVID-19 all trace back to them. Handling and eating them is precisely the kind of contact that lets a virus jump from animal to human. That's why bat products get stopped cold at most Western borders, tangled in wildlife protection and disease control law. There's a running joke that the only safe bat wine is the German vintage, a wine grown on bat dung fertilizer. No bat in that bottle, which is rather the point. Absinthe. For a century, the Green Fairy had a reputation no other drink could match. People swore it made you hallucinate. The blame fell on thujone, a compound in wormwood the bitter herb absinthe is made from. On paper, thujone looks alarming. It blocks the brain's main calming signal, the brake pedal that keeps your neurons from firing too freely. Take away the brake, and in large enough doses, you get restlessness, convulsions, and, in animals, seizures. That was the theory that damned it. A drink full of a mild neurotoxin, driving the drinkers of Bohemian Paris slowly insane. Then, in 1905, a Swiss laborer named Jean Lanfray shot his pregnant wife and his 2 small daughters and turned the rifle on himself. The defense blamed his 2 glasses of absinthe and quietly ignored the 7 glasses of wine, 6 of cognac, 2 glasses of creme de menthe, and brandy-laced coffees he'd also put away that day. But absinthe madness was the story everyone wanted. A petition gathered 82,000 signatures, and within a few years, Switzerland, France, and the United States had outlawed it. The catch came a century later, when chemists tested sealed pre-ban bottles and found thujone at a tiny fraction of the levels the myth demanded. Nowhere near enough to make anyone see anything. The madness was just heavy alcoholism, a moral panic, and a wine industry glad to bury a rival. America made it legal again in 2007. Everclear. Drinking this straight is less a shot than a chemical burn. At 95% alcohol, it sears the lips, tongue, and throat, triggers the gag reflex, and makes most people cough it straight back up before it reaches the stomach. That strength is the whole problem. A single ordinary shot of Everclear is close to 5 standard drinks landing at once, faster than the body can register, which is how someone goes from fine to unconscious with almost nothing in between. It's near flavorless too, which makes it worse. Smuggled into a sweet punch, it vanishes completely, so you can't taste that 1 cup now holds half a night's alcohol. It's long been a college party fixture for exactly that reason. Around 15 to 17 US states ban the 190 proof version outright, capping legal spirits near 151 proof. The weaker Everclear stays on the shelf, the stronger one doesn't. The reasoning is plain. Alcohol this strong, with no smell and no taste, is a little too easy to hand someone without them noticing. Moonshine. Here's the part people get wrong. Moonshine isn't illegal because it can blind you. It's illegal because nobody paid tax on it. Distilling spirits at home without a federal permit is a crime, no matter how clean your product is. The government wants its cut, and always has. The blindness is real, just secondary. Rush the distillation and you keep the methanol, which your body turns into formic acid that attacks the optic nerve. Drink enough and you go blind, then you die. Old stills built from car radiators threw in lead poisoning for good measure. During Prohibition, tainted liquor killed thousands. Today, you'll find moonshine sold legally in mason jars on supermarket shelves. But that's just unaged corn whiskey, taxed and tested. The name is a costume. The real thing is still a federal offense and still occasionally poisons the people who make it. Snake wine. In 2013, a woman in northern China reportedly reached into a jar of snake wine that had been steeping for 3 months, and the snake inside bit her. The story goes that the cobra had gone dormant in the alcohol and revived when air hit it. It's the internet's favorite snake wine tale, and it's almost certainly a one-off if it happened quite as described at all. Normally, the snake drowns and stays that way. Its venom, being mostly protein, gets broken apart by the strong alcohol, which is why the finished wine is usually safe to drink. Usually doing some quiet work in that sentence. It's sold across Vietnam and China as a cure for everything from back pain to a fading libido, none of which it delivers. And because the snakes are often endangered cobras, carrying a bottle into the US or EU generally ends with customs confiscating your souvenir. Fugu Sake. It sounds like a dare, hot sake with a grilled fin of pufferfish floating in it, sometimes set alight at the table. Pufferfish, after all, carries tetrodotoxin, a poison with no antidote that killed 23 people in Japan in barely a decade. So a drink made from one ought to be Russian roulette. Except it basically isn't. The poison sits in the liver, the ovaries, and the skin, not the fins, which are cleaned, dried, and toasted by licensed chefs who've already stripped out everything lethal. The little flame on top burns off nothing toxic. It just looks good. The real fugu deaths come almost entirely from amateurs gutting the fish at home, never from the sake. So Fugu Sake is the rare drink that sounds like it could kill you, and, made properly, is mostly just smoky and warm. Pruno. Prison wine has a flavor one former inmate described as a bile-flavored wine cooler, and that's the good news about it. Pruno is made by sealing mashed fruit, sugar, and often ketchup or bread into a plastic bag, then hiding it somewhere warm, under a bunk, inside a toilet tank, to ferment for about a week, burping the bag so it doesn't burst. The bad news arrives when someone adds a potato. In 2011, 6 inmates at a Utah prison were hospitalized with botulism from a potato-laced batch. In Arizona the next year, 9 more. Botulism shuts the body down from the head first, blurred vision, drooping eyelids, then paralysis creeping downward. As one video bluntly put it, worst case, you're paralyzed, you might die, and you're not even drunk. Prisons treat it as contraband, for reasons that should be clear. Kava. For centuries, islanders across Fiji and Vanuatu have sat in a circle, passed around a coconut cup of muddy brown liquid, and drunk themselves into a calm, chatty, faintly numb-mouthed mellow. Kava is made from the pounded root of a pepper plant, mixed with water. No alcohol, no drunkenness, just a deep social ease. Then, in 2002, a cluster of severe liver injury cases in Europe, including several people who needed transplants, set off a panic. Germany banned it. So did Britain, France, Switzerland, and Canada, while the FDA slapped a warning on it in America. The twist came in 2014, when a German court looked again, decided the risk had been overstated, and lifted the ban. The liver danger turned out to be real, but rare, quite possibly worse in the concentrated Western pills than in the root the islands had been drinking safely for 1,000 years. Chicha. The traditional version of this Andean corn beer is fermented with human saliva, on purpose. Someone chews cooked corn until an enzyme in their spit, the same one that starts digesting your food, breaks the starch down into sugar. The chewed mash is spat out, dried into little cakes, and left to ferment. The Inca ran an empire partly on the stuff. Laborers were paid in chicha. It was poured out as an offering to the gods, and it was fed to the people chosen for sacrifice. It never really got banned by name, but no modern health inspector will let you sell a drink made from mouth-fermented corn. So the saliva version got quietly pushed out of shops and into home kitchens. The chicha you can legally buy today uses sprouted grain instead. Same idea, minus the spit. Buckfast. A caffeinated tonic wine made by Benedictine monks has become so tied to Scottish street violence that police once asked for permission to tag every bottle so they could trace it. Buckfast is 15% alcohol, with roughly the caffeine of 8 cans of cola packed into one bottle, a combination that keeps you awake enough to keep drinking. The monks of Buckfast Abbey in Devon have sold it since the 1920s, and it now earns their charitable trust millions a year. Meanwhile, in Scotland, police logged the drink in over 10,000 crime reports in about 3.5 years, and one study of young offenders found more than 4 in 10 had drunk Buckfast right before committing their crime. It has never actually been banned. Plenty of other drinks turn up in crime stats too, but no other bottle has earned the nickname Wreck the Hoose Juice, or comes from monks who'd probably rather you didn't. Poitin. Ireland's homemade spirit holds a strange record. It was illegal for 336 years. The British Crown outlawed it in 1661, not because it was poisonous, but because farmers were distilling it in secret and paying no tax. So they took it into the hills, ran their stills at night by moonlight, and sometimes built them straddling a property line, so that when the excise men came, nobody could say whose still it was. One corner of Donegal, a place called Urris, effectively ran itself as an outlaw distilling republic. The spirit could reach 90% alcohol, strong enough to strip paint. Ireland finally legalized it in 1997 and gave it protected status in 2008, alongside the likes of champagne and mezcal. After more than 3 centuries as contraband, Poitin became respectable, which, depending on who you ask, was either justice or the moment it stopped being fun. That's 13 drinks the world decided were too dangerous, too strange, or too cheap to leave alone. If any of them surprised you, hit like. It genuinely helps the channel, and subscribe, because the next one's stranger still. Tell me in the comments which of these you'd actually try. Thanks for watching.